We're going to try this new format again, taking a movie that we didn't quite like and see if we could turn it into a better film. So what's the movie today?
Today's movie is Event Horizon.
The old classic. I didn't care for it. Hello everyone, welcome back to Screen to Screen. I'm Andrew and this is Chris.
Why, hello there. I like Event Horizon more than you, but also I'm frustrated with it because it's one of those movies that, again, and this is the whole premise of this particular part of Screen to Screen, it has a cool premise, but it doesn't take advantage of the premise as much as I would like it to.
The premise is fun. They could do something with it, but it's the execution of nearly every single other thing I just found to be very generic and boring. I didn't find the movie suspenseful or action-y or scary. It just felt like bland, late 90s. Like, I don't know. Everything. It was a very forgettable film for me. Like that. That's my beef. It's like they could have done a lot better, and yeah, so nothing that great to say.
The greatest detriment to this movie is the 90s, honestly. Like,
kind of. Because
it feels like... Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to...
Well, I mean, they could have leaned harder into the 90s and it would have been cheesy fun.
Right.
But, I don't know, it wasn't.
Like, to jump on the 90s thing, like, it felt like they had a cool premise, which was essentially, if you want to boil it down, haunted house, but in space. Like, that... Yeah, that's the through line that they had. But then they ruin it because it's a 90s movie, so you gotta have, like, a quippy character. So you get a character who's, like, completely out of place with all of these stern, science-y folks.
Who are all, like, the same character. Just boring, but yeah.
They all have a lot of overlap, but there's each one has one thing that's their thing.
Yeah,
they don't really lean into it at all. Like, they do blend together.
They have like the same personality.
Except for a guy who's super quippy.
Right. It's like they're using him as sort of like a I wrote characters. They're different. There's that guy. I was like, I don't know. It's just so bland.
Like the blandness and the missed opportunity. And the quippy character, and the fact that it's the 90s, so, like, you have a movie that's, like, a horror movie, and horrible things happen, and it has a relatively downbeat, sad ending, and, like, you have a character, like, holding someone, like, it's gonna be okay, you know, we got out, and then the credits happen, and the song they chose, Prodigy, Funky Shit, that's the song.
Okay.
So, like... You have a character who's, like, emotionally broken and someone's trying to comfort them. And then the Prodigy starts for the fucking credits.
It felt very weird and abrupt. Like, it was like a weird fake-out ending, but it was, like, I don't know. It was just such a weird... I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking.
Like, to have a thesis for this episode, this movie had a cool premise, and then they just dropped it into a puddle of the 90s and then kicked it into a sewer. For those unfamiliar with Event Horizon, the general premise is a ship was built with a warp drive. They activated the warp drive. Ship disappeared. 16 years later, or something like that, I don't remember the exact number of years that go by, the ship reappears in a low orbit on Neptune, and a rescue crew with the original ship's architect is sent out to find the Event Horizon. But... the ship is now possessed by an evil force, haunted by wherever it went when it traveled into the warp. And then everyone dies because they're on a haunted ship, basically, is the premise there. I like the idea of, like, taking sci-fi and... Because sci-fi and horror go together very well. Aliens... There are a number of good sci-fi horror movies.
I kept thinking of Annihilation in this movie when I was rewatching it.
Annihilation, nice
like,
choice.
That had a similar sort of, like, a bunch of people go into a weird thing and try to make sense of it, and like it had a similar premise, but that was such a good movie though.
Oh, Annihilation's an amazing movie.
In every way, I don't want to derail this here, but
like go.
In every way, Event Horizon failed for me. Annihilation succeeded. Like The dialogue was way better. The characters were different from each other. The effects were good. The settings were interesting. Like, everything that they didn't do was done better in Annihilation.
Right.
The suspense existed.
And this actually segues perfectly into, like, my major disappointment with this movie. This is a haunted house in space, but the core conceit is supposed to be that the horror's coming from another dimension. It's supposed to be cosmic horror. And Annihilation's like perfect cosmic horror.
Oh, yeah.
It's this unknowable force that's well beyond human comprehension and even our ability to interact and deal with, driving people insane, killing them off until either no one remains or someone is fundamentally changed, like on a pure level of humanity, like when they get out. Annihilation hits all those beats perfectly, and then this movie is like, yeah, what's the other dimension? Spooky. Another dimension, spooky.
It's the spooky dimension.
It's like, yeah, like they went to the Cenobite home place, and like, you know, people get like whips and chains and stuff. It's like, okay. And then they designed the ship to be, you know, like a Gothic cathedral in space with big spikes.
It's so weird.
So that served no purpose, making the ship look like that. Like, even when they're walking down a tunnel, we have like a character be like, oh, weird, you got a ship with a meat grinder on it, and there's a throwaway line of like, oh, it diffuses gravity. It's like, come on, like, even like with the hell dimension, we don't get cool demons, we don't get like unknowable, uninterpretable things. We just get character who apparently has issues with their child being ill back home, maybe because there's not really any character development at all in this movie.
It's all a lot of shorthand character development.
Oh, incredibly shorthand. Like, the best they do for the captain.
Yeah.
They at least have him talk about stuff before his haunted past comes back.
Yeah.
In the form of a man he left behind in a fire who burned alive. Like, other characters just like, oh no, my child is here. I'll go chase after them, fall and die. Like, come on. Yeah. Like, do something with these things. Establish these characters earlier. Give us some character development. Make us understand what these things are going to be that are going to haunt them later, if you want to go in that direction. But there are way cooler directions to go.
I think Arrival did... I wouldn't call that, like, a cosmic horror film, but it definitely, like, flirts with themes in there.
Yeah, That's less cosmic horror and more cosmic suspense.
Yeah, but I think
which
like,
is not a genre, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you know. But the point I'm making is that like her backstory, as convoluted as it was, like not in a bad way, as complicated as it was, because you know I don't want to spoil the movie if you haven't seen it, but it's like kind of all rolled into everything. I'm not expecting them to go like that hard into it, but like that was a really interesting way to do a backstory, and how it fed into the alien stuff that was happening. Like, exactly, you could do stuff like that. It's fun.
it makes for a better movie because your characters, when they die, you'll care about that.
If you're gonna kill a character off, I should either feel something or it should be really fun and gory. And I feel like they didn't quite go far enough. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I had more fun watching Mortal Kombat because people exploded and stuff.
Incredibly dumb jump scares that aren't even jump scares. They're just like cutting to a mundane thing, but with a loud audio cue. Stop it. That's stupid. You're not building tension. All right?
I hate bad jump scares.
Which is this like movie 90%. Has the worst ones. I hesitate to even call them jump scares because a jump scare is usually like a thing jumps out and a loud musical cue happens, and you're like, okay, the scary thing happened and the loud sound happened.
Yeah.
And that's a jump scare. This movie has a cut to Dr. Weir, Sam Neill's character. Early in the movie, they have a cut where it cuts to him upside down because he's on a space station, and they accompany that cut with like scary jump scare sounds, almost like Cabin in the Woods is like mundane office scene cut to title screen, but like just with him standing there not doing anything. And they do that several times in the movie and pisses me off. We also of course get in the midway point in the movie, they just switched to using cartoon sound effects for some reason. The ship is a gothic cathedral in space with, like, menacing spikes, rotating meat grinder hallways, precipitous falls, like, all these cool environmental hazards that you're like, okay, all right, yeah, I know how people are going to die in this ship. I'm excited to see it. Doesn't happen. We have a person fall next to a spike. It's like, why even have them? So, like, that annoyed me. It annoyed me that at some level, someone in production's like, all right, haunted house in space. It'd be really cool to make the ship feel like a haunted house in space. Let's steal Gothic architecture and put it on our spaceship. But they didn't utilize it in any way, and it didn't mean anything. It's just you might as well just take a haunted mansion on Earth and put it in space and have the whole movie happen in a literal house in space at this point. The warp drive is an old Victorian house we put on a boat.
I have a really nitpicky thing about this movie.
Oh, sure, nitpick away.
I shouldn't even complain because it was probably one of the first movies to do this, but I'm so sick of, like, people explaining wormholes with a piece of paper and a pencil poking through. They do that in everything. Like, there should be like a supercut. A supercut. But, like, at this point, it's like everyone knows this.
It's true.
It's always the same way.
I don't believe this is the first movie to do it. I believe this is the second or third movie to do it too. So they know what they were doing. Oh, and just because I have to mention it, they, like, completely stole a scene from Alien. Not even an important scene, but, like, the framing and everything for a hand coming up while climbing a ladder was just taken wholesale, and that really stuck out to me for some reason.
So how do we fix this movie, I guess, is the next question.
Oh, I have a number of things to talk about on that front. The first thing I would love to fix, it almost feels like it might have been cut from the movie even, is all of this happens for no reason. Like, it's a coincidence that the warp drive takes them to heck, or like an alien dimension that's similar to hell.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a weird coincidence. So it's extra strange that there's that coincidence, and also the ship is designed as if it were some sort of satanic church. Like,
yeah.
Just totally unrelated that it happened to look like that and also go there. Like, whoa, what a weird coincidence. And it feels like that was a through line that got cut from the movie, because we have scenes of Dr. Weir having dreams at the very beginning of the movie where he already is dreaming about the ship with hellish entities on it. He's already thinking about his dead wife. Like, he is weird. Like, his character has weird lines and weird motives and weird situations throughout the movie that it almost feels like there's two versions of Dr. Weir on the boat.
Dr. Weir and Dr. Weird.
Yeah, Dr. Weir and Dr. Weird. So, one thing I would love to do is make it so the ship is designed that way on purpose. Dr. Weir didn't come up with, like, magic math that just created new science. This is something they got from, like, a weird tome or, like, forbidden knowledge somewhere. Like, lean into the cosmic horror element a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, he got these schematics or instructions or, like, even just the fundamental math through weird texts on Earth he found. And, like, that's a secret, so we don't want to know about just yet, but it's hinted at a lot. Have it matter that the ship looks as weird as it does. Have people comment on it and, like, obviously have Dr. Weird dodge those answers. Give some nice foreshadowing there. That's step one. Step two, all those characters need to have fucking motivations and backgrounds and character development. Personalities. Like, give us characters that we care about and not just, there's Quippy Guy, there's the motherly character, and that's all of the backstory you get for why she chases after a weird kid later on. Like, good lord. You have Justin, who's just a nice guy, but you don't get to know him before he goes into a coma and then injects himself into space.
He's just in the movie.
Yeah, he's just in the movie.
All of these names, there's Dr. Weird, just in, they're all placeholder names.
They're all placeholder names. So, like, that's an important thing, is, like, give these people fun backstories. Maybe have one of them be an accomplice to Dr. Weir. Like, give him a man on the inside who he knows he can trust more than the others, maybe. Like, let's get some tension between the crew members, perhaps. All kinds of things that would lead to this being a movie that actually has tension, which would be super cool. Be a nice change.
I like it. Tension's good.
Yeah. Obviously, the boat, the creepy-ass boat, these things that are built onto the boat that look like they're used to murder people, use them to murder people, please. Like, have the meat grinder do something. Have the spikes be for impallations. Don't waste your dumb Gothic cathedral in space. Use it.
I mean, we could also just write that part out of the movie.
That's also true.
Either way,
but
as long as it makes sense.
Yeah, as long as it's for a purpose and not just like. Because, again, it almost feels like they wanted to make a haunted house movie, and, like, a sticking point is that a producer said it has to be in space, and so they just put a haunted house in space. For a 90s idea, I could see that flying in a cocaine-fueled room.
I liked the idea of the literal house in space. That's
yeah,
I guess that's Zathura, isn't it?
I guess it is.
But a little different. That's not a haunted house.
I mean, we could go nuts here. Like, you could literally have the core be comprised of, like, things, haunted house pieces or something. Like, you want to go silly, but at least commit. Like, I need you to commit.
Yeah.
That's my problem with this movie, is, like, it never felt like it committed to any one strong idea. It just feels like, I want a creepy haunted house in space. All right, the ship looks like a cathedral. Done. I want heck imagery. All right, every once in a while they see heck imagery. Done. I want character to cut out his eyes. Yeah, sure, why not? Fuck it. You know, he cuts out his eyes, but he gets them back later for some reason. Why not?
Why not?
Like, it just never felt like it was strong in its convictions, and I really wanted that. I wanted, like, a cosmic horror movie that was strong in its convictions to be a cosmic horror movie. So have Weir be a scientist obsessed with the occult. You know, he's a weird guy. It's Dr. Weird now. Have the ship be built in its fashion because it's fundamentally important for its warp drive to get it to a horrible hell dimension. And he knows it's going to a hell dimension. Like, he was willing to sacrifice the crew to do that. And the reason why he's coming back to the ship isn't because he's here to help them retrieve it. It's because he knows it worked. And now he's here to reap the benefits because he has, like, a weird desire to, like, get his wife back, perhaps, through this hell dimension.
The first crew is sort of like the guinea pigs. Like, he was testing it out.
They were a sacrifice, and he knew that.
Yeah.
Like, have him fundamentally be the villain and not just a weird dude who becomes the villain later on.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to make a bunch of cool hell stuff, and instead you wanted a human-esque villain in there.
Yeah.
Have that hell dimension portal release things that are actually there and not just, like, visions in people's heads. One note I have is that for some reason people were shocked and appalled to find a frozen body floating there, but at no point were they shocked and appalled to find human skulls growing out of the wall. Like, they're having conversations with the background skull wall. Like, it's actual skulls, human skulls, embedded in the wall, and no one points it out, but they point out all this other nonsense. It's like, maybe let's talk about how the walls literally started turning into a Doom level.
It seems like the writer and the production designer weren't allowed to look at each other's work.
Right, yeah, it really feels that way.
It's like... You kind of need.
It was a surprise on set when everyone arrived.
Yeah, when both the those two people went to see the movie, they were both like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah, I think we fundamentally misunderstood each other.
I'm so sorry.
Oh no. So, by changing those things and making Weir a villain from the get-go, fleshing out the cast, you could almost stay the course. Have Dr. Weir, like, needing to go back, everyone trying to stop him sabotaging anyone leaving because he needs more sacrifices. Make it important that the other people don't get away, because otherwise, why would he give a shit that they're going to leave? Like, He could have just let everyone leave, and he could have stayed on the ship if that's all he cared about, like he kept on saying in the fucking movie. Instead, like, he needs more sacrifices. Like, he's trying to bargain with something beyond his understanding. Have some spooky things come out of there, maybe like unknowable demon-esque things that play with your mind but have a physical form that you can have some creepy scenes with.
Like that bear from Annihilation.
Yeah, like the bear from Annihilation.
That was so good.
Have the corpses, like the fucking skull wall, like become a thing. Like you could make this a body horror movie, like borrow from The Thing a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like they really like missed the boat there. Like they kind of like alluded to body horror and then they kind of backed away. Because I thought that's where it was going to go. Yeah,
instead you get some like weird fun little like cutaway scenes to frantic gore. Dr. Weir cuts out his eyes, and like that's the end of the body horror. I guess, decompression scene is a little body horror-esque, but
yeah,
that's it. That's the full list if you include that.
Yeah.
I would have been way more fun to have, like, instead of a nebulous life signs are weird, there's something on the ship, but it's not corporeal, it's just showing us things. I get that with haunted house movies. Like, people seeing their dark past is part and parcel for a haunted house movie. If you want to play with hell, like, sure, mess with that stuff, but have a physical entity there that, like, can actually do something with it, maybe. I don't know. Like, I want more from this premise. I don't just want a haunted house in space. I want an actual cosmic horror setup in space that has, like, a little bit of the aesthetic of a haunted house in space. And again, have that play into this man fusing, like, occultism and science to make a weird gateway to hell in space. Which will tie into why this is secretly a stealth prequel to the entire Warhammer 40k universe. So I'm not a authority on Warhammer 40k, so feel free to correct me in the comments. But I do understand on a basic level, in the Warhammer 40k universe, faster than light travel is essentially exactly the same as it is in Event Horizon. The way of faster than light travel works is you send your
piece
spaceship,
of paper, pencil.
Yeah, your piece of paper, pencil. But more importantly, you are sending your spaceship to a hell dimension, like a horrible nightmare hell dimension. And, like, you just hope that you make it to the other side. Like, you take the chance every time. Like, some ships just don't make it. They get destroyed in hell. So the fact that this is, like, legitimately the same type of technology that Warhammer uses, I think it'd be fun to take this a step further. Not only is Dr. Weir doing this on purpose, potentially with the hopes of making a bargain to get his wife back if we want to keep the wife element in there, and I think you should. It's nice to have that human element to a man who's willing to do anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So have Dr. Weir be using some of the resources that are important to the Warhammer 40k universe. Some of, like, those ridiculously ancient and alien texts that people find from time to time. And he figures out that there is another place, a hellish place, and he thinks that he might have the power to do what he needs or wants. And he uses that to create the warp technology that will go on to define the Warhammer 40k universe. Like, this event could even be one of the, like, the formative events in the Warhammer universe coming to the screen. And I don't want to go too deep into that because this is an Event Horizon movie we're talking about and not necessarily a Warhammer 40k, but yeah. I love stealth prequels or stealth sequels, and this would be a really fun way to, like, bring Warhammer to the screen. Because weirdly enough, this is a franchise that in 1 year can put out more than 60 video games. It has countless board game adaptations. I mean, it is a board game. It's a tabletop game, to be more specific. But on top of the tabletop element, it also has, like, Warhammer Risk or Warhammer Monopoly. Like, it's a massive franchise. Like, these things span all kinds of medium, and except for movies. Like, weirdly enough, they haven't made a movie. And I think an Event Horizon remake as, like, a little sneaky wink and a nod to the fact that Warhammer's coming would be a fun way to do it.
I mean, it's been 26 years. I mean, it definitely is time we could do a remake.
But I think Games Workshop, the folks that make Warhammer, they probably have the money they need to not only get their own movie going. I mean, that's easy enough. I have a successful franchise. Hollywood, would you like to adapt it?
Right.
Obviously, they'll say yes. But on top of that, you could probably use some of that money to snag the Event Horizon license. I don't know who holds it, but you could probably get that.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah. It's just a fun little twist on it that you can introduce. You can make the movie almost entirely free of the Warhammer stuff and just have it be a fun post-credit scene, after the whole thing wraps up. This is part of something bigger. Here's one of the scenes in the movie that, annoyed me. You have characters getting CO2 scrubbers, and it's we need to have 25. One guy just wants to go. The other one is terrified, but is insistent they have enough for everyone to survive. And then they turn to leave, and the other guy just sprints away, and she sees what she thinks might be her son, which obviously it can't be, because she's on a fucking spaceship.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes for her to drop the tubes she has and walk away from her responsibility of saving everyone's lives. The other guy doesn't even turn around to see what happened to her. He just goes, doesn't come back. She, of course, climbs a ladder after her son, who I thought it was clearly established earlier in the movie via flashback is weird, wheelchair-bound, so it's weird that he's walking around. And then she falls and dies. Doesn't even fall on a spike in the wall. She falls next to a spike in the wall. So, that kind of stuff could fly if you're in a haunted house on Earth. If you're on a spaceship that you're pretty sure is, from hell, you might not want to go looking after your kid. And, it was clear at this point for her that that's what the ship is. Again, skull wall in the ship. You're not going to find a happy son on this fucking thing. So you could definitely work that in there more. You could have, entities that are capable of, deceiving you via promising you things. Work it up a little bit. Don't just have her run after an illusion of her son and die out of nowhere. So I think it'd be a lot more fun to have, actual, hulking, scary demon things on there. Manifestations of your past that are fucking with you but are themselves, demonic and aware of what they're doing. Make them much more sinister.
Would have been interesting to kind of just take this movie into a whole different kind of dimension, different story dimension, is if it turns into a bit of a Perfect Blue sort of situation. Where we, the viewer, are kind of unsure what's going on.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of interesting to sort of it makes sense, and then all of a sudden, once the weird heck portal stuff comes in, now it's sort of wait, are we in a dream, or are we, or is what's real?
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
Change the film grading, change the color grading.
Yeah.
Have there be a transition that's a snap. He hits a switch and it starts the countdown, and the countdown immediately opens that weird gooey portal that Justin gets sucked into. But have that be the initializer for the weird skull wall slowly becoming a thing, having entities stalking them on the ship. And give that a clear countdown. When the 30 minutes is up, it travels to the next place. It goes into the heck dimension. And it's going to be increasingly scary and weird and surreal and dangerous, and that gives our characters a ticking clock. It gives them a thing they have to avoid, escape, or stop. It gives Dr. Weir his objective of keeping everyone on the boat. You can have some good scares, some good kills in there, and then have a couple people make it away because of the brave sacrifice of our captain, who can have his same backstory where he left someone behind. And this time he's choosing to keep himself behind to save everyone else, have that arc end in a same place, but have it be a little bit more satisfying because we learn a little bit more about him.
All right, well, thanks for watching Screen to Screen. If you have any other movies that you didn't like but probably should have liked, well, let us know about them. I mean, maybe we'll try to fix them up.
Yeah, what movies did you think wasted their premise and wasted their potential and could have been better?
Or if you just have any other ideas for Screen to Screen, we can give that a whirl too.
Oh, of course, yeah. Our normal call to action stands.
Don't tell them it's a call to action; they'll feel manipulated.
Oh no! Next, you're gonna tell me I shouldn't tell them to subscribe, like, comment.
Oh God, the curtain!
Hit that bell.
It's all being revealed.